Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale today. I can't believe I've never shown this deck before. I am joined by HBS4, currently number 13 on the global leaderboard. He's playing this deck that you guys have certainly seen before. It is the Mega Knight Inferno Dragon Hog Rider deck. It's probably one of the most versatile offensive and defensive decks in the game. Arguably one of the, if not the strongest decks overall at tournament level standard in the game as well. So this is the deck that we're looking at right now. It's a 3.4 cost. In Goo, aka again HBS4, is going to give us a full rundown of all of the tips that you guys are going to need to have success with this deck, because this deck especially isn't necessarily good enough, or at least I'm not good enough, just to watch gameplay and be able to come out a better player for it. So I think having these tips will help you guys out tremendously. So we're going to do it old school and just give a full deck rundown with the gameplay in the background, of course. So let's start out with the obvious question. What are the replacements for the Mega Knight and the Inferno Dragon, especially if you don't have high-level Mega Knight and high-level Inferno Dragon and you want to try this deck out on ladder? So Goo says you want to use the Mini P.E.K.K.A. for the Mega Knight, and for the Inferno Dragon, you just want to use a Musketeer to give you that air targeting range unit. Of course, against tanks, your strategy will be a little bit different. You'll be relying a lot on the Mini P.E.K.K.A. and the Musketeer will be support, whereas right now it's kind of like the Inferno Dragon that you're going to be leaning on heavily for those tanks. And if your opponent zaps, then you can play the bats. So anyway, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go on to the main offensive push in this deck. The main offensive push is going to be a Hog Rider, an Ice Golem, and then a Hog Rider. And then what you combine it with is going to depend on your opponent's deck. So Goo says the main push, again, is Ice Golem, which is like tremendously powerful, incredibly powerful. Ice Golem is probably, just my opinion, I think it's the strongest card in the game. For 2 elixir, you get incredible value. And remember, the synergy that the Ice Golem and the Zap have. If you're playing Ice Golem, you probably should be playing Zap, and no matter what the deck is, because Ice Golem plus Zap kills a minion horde, okay? So that's partially what we're getting at here. Your main offensive push is going to be the Hog Rider and the Ice Golem. If your opponent stops it with, you know, a swarm units, a Goblin Gang, or perhaps a minions, then you can combo it with a Zap to take care of that entirely, right? If it's like a skeleton army, forget about it. You don't even need the Zap. The Ice Golem will kill it, kill all those skeletons himself. Okay, now what about if your opponent has a tank or something like that? Well, then you have 2 options, the Inferno Dragon and the bats. You have Inferno Dragon, bats, and goblins. So let's try to take a step back here. Because it's not that complicated, but I want to make sure I describe it properly for you guys. So at your disposal here, again, speaking mainly single elixir time here, we have the Inferno Dragon, we have the Ice Golem, we have bats, and we have goblins, all to combo with our Hog. So it's your job, the player using this deck, to identify what counters your opponent has. The first thing that you want to make sure you're aware of is if they have Zap or Log. Which one of those cards do they have in their deck? Hopefully not both, because if they have Log, you're always going to be comboing the bats with the Hog Rider. If they Zap, it's not the end of the world. That just means you can use your Inferno Dragon later on. They don't have Zap in cycle, okay? If they have Zap but not Log, you're always going to combo the goblins with the Hog Rider. That way Zap can't kill it, okay? And if they have some sort of a tank, like a Mini P.E.K.K.A. that they're countering your Hog with, you wait for the Mini P.E.K.K.A. to be out of rotation, then you attack with a Hog, or you try to outcycle them, or you play the Inferno Dragon defensively against their push, and then you can combo the Ice Golem and the Hog with the Inferno Dragon, and then while the P.E.K.K.A. is taking down the Ice Golem, hopefully your Inferno Dragon takes him out, and you at least get a few swings with the Hog onto the tower. So that is your single elixir Hog strategy. So remember, first thing you're going to think of when you go into these matches is, what does my opponent have? Do they have Log? Do they have Zap? That's going to tell you what to combo with the Hog. Okay, so defense with this deck, then we'll get into single versus double elixir time. So Goo says on defense, you're going to be using your poison for swarm targets. I mean, that's pretty, or fireball, no matter, you can you can use both spells in this deck. In this replay, you can see he's using Fireball, but basically for Swarm air targets, you're going to use your big spell. For Minion Horde, unless you have Ice Golem and Zap in play, obviously it's still a 4 cost either way, so just keep that in mind. Oftentimes you can get more value off of a Fireball or a Poison. So for defense against ground swarm units or musketeers or 3 musketeers or E-Wiz or Ice Wiz, basically anything medium-sized HP, that's when you can use, you guessed it, the Mega Knight. Or, of course, you can use the Mini Pekka if you don't have Mega Knight. Okay, now for the against tanks, against Lava Hound, against Giant, against Golem, it's pretty obvious. You're going to be leaning heavily on your Inferno Dragon. Now, of course, keep in mind that anybody who runs heavy tanks usually runs Zap as well. So keep that in mind. Obviously, try to bait out their Zap with your bats, or if they use Zap against your Inferno Dragon, then you drop bats. Don't drop Inferno Dragon and bats at the same exact time, giving them tremendous Zap value, and then you're caught, you know, totally out of luck. You don't have your bats in hand anymore, and they got great value out of that Zap. Okay, so that's defense, pretty basic. You basically have a strong defensive option to anything that your opponent can throw at you using this deck. That's why it's so powerful, and this is just an incredible counter push deck as well. Okay, what about double or single elixir? Single elixir mode, I mean, it's pretty basic, right? The difference between single elixir and double elixir with this deck specifically mainly lies in the Mega Knight. You're not going to be using your Mega Knight that often unless a situation really calls for it, like 3 Musketeers in a single elixir time. More often than not, you're going to be saving your Mega Knight to be used in double elixir time. So when you get to double elixir time, I talked to Goo, he's a big fan of using the Mega Knight more frequently in double elixir time. You can see a split push going on right now. And look at this big push coming in the left lane. He has bats, he has Mega Knight, he uses the Zap. That was a really good Zap on his part, and it's actually going to take down that left tower, ending the game. So that's a good example of how he can be aggressive and play that Mega Knight to kind of tank for the Hog in a way, or distract for the Hog into double elixir time, especially when you're confident that your opponent doesn't have a good counter in hand, or that you can kind of just steamroll your opponent, as we saw in that last match. Okay, what about the first plays of the game? What's a good opening play with this deck? Well, of course, you can play things incredibly passively. This version, by the way, has the Poison. I told you we're going to see both versions. Don't mind the battle deck, guys. I'm just going to include Poison in it because that was the version that he gave me the write-up for. But you can swap in Fireball, especially if you're playing this deck on ladder and you don't have a high-level Poison because it's an epic card. But for tournament level standard, I would recommend going ahead and using the Poison in this deck. So, opening play, if he has it in hand, he said he's going to be using just a solo Hog. Using a Hog plus any more elixir like Hog Goblins, that's a 6 elixir push, and your opponent can pretty easily stop it if they have the right counters in hand. So he doesn't like to go super aggressive with a Hog Bats or Hog Goblins or even a Hog Ice Golem to start out the match. He's comfortable using 4 elixir and just seeing what his opponent has to counter the Hog. Sometimes you'll even get lucky and they won't have a great Hog counter in hand. You run into that a lot against Golem decks or Lava Loon decks when they don't have their Tombstone, or they don't have, you know, if you're going against a Golem deck, maybe they only have like a Baby Dragon to use against the Hog, and you get a free 3 swings or 4 swings. What is it against Baby Dragon? I don't know. Against Mega Minion, it's 3 swings. Against Baby Dragon, I think it's 4 swings or 5? I don't know. A lot, anyway. So there's always that chance, but at least you kind of discover. It's the discovery phase of the match where you can find out what your opponent has in hand. So that would be your good opening play, the Hog. If you don't have Hog, you can split Goblins, you can play an Ice Golem in the back. That's pretty much your standard plays, or splitting bats in the back of the, or wait for your opponent to make the first move and then play reactively instead. What about common mistakes? Common mistakes with this deck: playing the Hog with Goblins. These are pretty obvious, but hey, he included them, so I'm gonna let you guys know. It's good to have the reminder anyway, and it just goes to show how important figuring out their spells are, right? So the common mistakes are playing the Hog Rider with Goblins when you know that they're playing Log, or playing the Hog Rider with Bats when you know they have Zap. Obviously, we talked about this in the offensive strategy. You're going to want to make sure you always are kind of have a keen observation of what their small spell is so you can combo that hog appropriately. Other than that, always figure out what small spell, what big spell, what their win condition is, and how you're going to counter their win condition. Take into account their zap or their lightning, anything to reset your Inferno Dragon. Obviously, if they have E-Wiz, keep that into account. Make sure you're playing your goblins, your bats preemptively to stop your opponent from targeting your Inferno Dragon with the E-Wiz if at all possible. And when you're doing that too, it's the same as what we just talked about, right? If your opponent has E-Wiz behind their tank and you know they have log, well, you're going to want to guard, you're going to want to block that E-Wiz with bats, not goblins. So guys, that is the full deck rundown. I hope you guys have a better understanding of how to use the deck. Now let's just enjoy the replays here and do a little play-by-play. This is going to be a monster push. HBS4 on the bottom here. This is going to be pretty much unstoppable here. The Inferno Dragon bleeding through that Ice Golem. Finishing off the job is the poison on the cannon cart. Finally, we get to reach the tower there. Mega Knight jumps onto the tower. What do you guys think? Mega Knight is too strong, too weak, just right? A lot of people think that he's OP. A lot of pro players think that he's OP, but I think that, you know, I don't think that he's super, I don't know. Oh, by the way, look at this. My game froze. I apologize, guys. This is very unprofessional of me, but I had to hard quit. Arena of Valor, Guns of Boom, just what I've been playing in the off time. No big deal. All right, we're getting back into the game to see the last replay. But basically, back to Mega Knight. I think that Mega Knight is a strong card. No doubt about it. But I like that he's a strong card that costs 7 elixir, because that's a big investment, kind of like his counterpart, the P.E.K.K.A. at 7 elixir. She's very strong, no doubt about it, but she's a big investment too, and she can be countered for less. Similar to the Mega Knight, with just bats and an Ice Golem, feasibly you can kite and counter in a Mega Knight. So there's options there. So I don't think that he deserves a nerf. Just me, just my opinion. Anyway, let's get into this match here. So you can see we're going against a 3 Musketeer deck. So what we always want to do is we want to use Poison or Fireball against the pump. We're going to be saving the Mega Knight for the 3 Musketeers, and then into double elixir time. Well, then it's a little bit easier because most likely your opponent won't be pumping, and then you'll have Poison and Mega Knight to play. So here we counter the single solo Musketeer in the right lane with bats, and then look at this. I mean, 2 Musketeers, level 11 Musketeers, pounding down, or firing away, I should say, at the Mega Knight, who is pounding down on them. Did that come out right? I don't know. Jesus, Ash, come on, man. Friendly. All right, so Musketeers are dead. Now we're going in with the Inferno Dragon against the Miner. You can see that was a big push, and we were able to defend it pretty well. However, the opponent still does have almost a full hand of elixir. Good job kind of saving that zap spell to wait for the second counter instead of using it against the Goblin Gang, which we already had largely taken care of with the Ice Golem death damage there. So there comes another elixir pump, and here comes another poison against it. The opponent says, well played. What are we going to do here? We're pretty much even in elixir, and you can see kind of an awkward starting hand. He has the goblins selected. So what are we going to play the goblins preemptively in the left lane? We are. So playing the goblins on the bridge there, really no other option. And look at that. The opponent just missed with that Ice Golem. People tend to do that, even at the highest levels of the game, is missing with the Ice Golem there. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and cycle Ice Golem of our own, as well as a Inferno Dragon in the back. Here comes Battle Ram. It's going to make contact to the left tower. However, we have to save a little bit of elixir to defend in the right. We use the goblins in the right lane. Very smart decision, knowing the opponent had zap in hand. If we had used the bats in the right lane, we would have lost the right tower, right? Because the opponent had zap, they would have been able to one-shot those bats and take down the tower behind the Musketeer in the Miner. So those are the little decisions that we talked about earlier in this video that are going to give you success long-term. So here comes Musketeer split right in the middle. Good poison there, getting the tower that we're after, getting one shot with the Hog, just barely. And now we have a big push coming again in the right lane. Again, that Battle Ram does make contact to that right tower Mega Knight used to kill the barbarians, but right now things are pretty even in this match. You could argue that the opponent has the small advantage, just overall more tower damage, and that was the big zap there, really affording that Hog to get into that left lane, get to the tower, get it down to 100 HP, and look at this at the very last second. Oh my gosh! 27 HP left on that right tower, but he does it. HBS4, that match actually got him to #1 at the time that I was recording, or at the time right before I started recording this video. But either way, guys, it's not about where he is in the leaderboards this early in the season or midway through the season. It's just about the power of this deck. So, guys, I'm going to include a link to his YouTube channel, Goose. If you're Brazilian, if you speak Portuguese, certainly go check it out. Certainly one of the best players in the world, let alone just being a Brazilian player. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to Bren Chong. Huge shout out to Goo for coming on the channel. Check out both of their information in the description below. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And as always, take care, guys.